Let's bring in Neama Rahmani. He is the president and co-founder of West Coast Trial Lawyers, as well as a former federal prosecutor, and he joins us from Los Angeles. Neama, thank you so much for making time for us tonight.
Of course, Deanna, thanks for having me.
Neama, tell me, what do you make of these arrests?
Well, it's a sad day, but it finally brings to closure, or at least close to it, the investigation into the tragic and unnecessary death of Matthew Perry. And the way I look at this is there are really two cases. There's a case involving the two doctors who were taking advantage of Matthew Perry's addiction. These ketamine vials cost them $12. They were selling them to Perry for $2,000. And let's not forget, ketamine in its pure form is a liquid. It's supposed to be administered in an IV, sometimes in the nasal spray, but usually an IV in a hospital, a doctor's office, a medical setting. It's not supposed to be sent home with the patient to be administered at home. Certainly not supposed to be using it at or near the time where you're going to go into a hot tub. And a lot of people misuse that liquid ketamine. They end up cooking it, transforming it into a white powder and snorting it. Unfortunately, it has now become one of the most commonly abused party drugs in the past 5 to 10 years.
Neama, I want to ask you to walk us through what these individuals have been charged with.
So the doctors have been charged with the conspiracy and the distribution of ketamine, as well as falsifying medical records. When it was clear that they were under investigation, they allegedly doctored medical forms to try to show that the ketamine that was provided to Perry was medically necessary. So they've been charged with obstruction as well. With respect to the ketamine queen, she faces the most serious charges for a number of reasons. It wasn't just ketamine. She had a significant amount of methamphetamine, which is even a more dangerous drug. And she was responsible for a ketamine-related death, at least allegedly, in 2019, where she provided ketamine to an individual named Cody, and he died as a result. So she's looking at a potential life sentence because of the methamphetamine and the prior death. And then you have another street dealer, and as well as the assistant. The assistant is probably the least culpable of everyone here, but when you're charged with a ketamine or any other drug-related conspiracy, you're on the hook for anything that happens as a result of the conspiracy, including someone's death.
Neama, I want to ask you, you zeroed in on the fact that ketamine in its liquid form is something that should be administered by a doctor. 2 doctors are among the people charged here. I think for a lot of people, it'll harken back, if they're old enough to remember, to the death of Michael Jackson and Dr. Conrad Murray, who, of course, prescribed propofol. All the publicity around that when a doctor goes against all of their codes of ethics, many of which doctors are absolutely liable to, in addition, of course, the legal and criminal charges here. I read Matthew Perry's autobiography, and in one memorable chapter during the peak of his addiction to prescription drugs in the heyday of the TV show Friends, he described driving around Los Angeles from one end of the city to another to go to 6 or 7 doctors a day so he could get different prescriptions from all of them and maximize the amount of pills that he could get at that time. And it really struck me how this was basically happening pretty much in the open. I mean, he didn't name names, but clearly this was happening in a place like Hollywood, where there is a lot of people with unlimited means and of course, a lot of people with addictions as well. What does it signify to you as a legal expert that we seem to be taking, or the legal system seems to be taking this really seriously now and charging these doctors?
Well, Deanna, you're absolutely right. And I am a little bit older. And my former law firm did handle that Conrad Murray civil case on behalf of AEG, so I know it well. And you're right. We're talking about very powerful anesthetics. Propofol, which was used to help Michael Jackson go to sleep, that's a drug that's administered during surgery. And, you know, I talked about ketamine being a newer drug as far as its abuse, but it's been around forever. But it was around for vets. They used it to tranquilize horses. So think about how powerful that drug is. And the amount of ketamine found in Matthew Perry's body, at least according to the autopsy report, was an amount used for anesthesia, like he's under surgery. So we're talking about very powerful drugs, very powerful doses. And you're right, these are controlled substances. You have to either get them from a dealer or from a doctor. And law enforcement, they're cracking down on these pill mills or Dr. Feelgoods or whatever you call it, who are prescribing these drugs in large amounts, collecting a lot of money in return. And it's really a situation of profits over people. And doctors who swore an oath to protect their patients are really doing them a disservice. And Matthew Perry paid the ultimate price here.
Neama, we're running out of time, but I just want to ask you one quick question while we still have you. Obviously, a lot of resources were put towards this investigation. Obviously, some of it happened because Matthew Perry is such a well-known name. Is this common, and do you think that there is a benefit to the publicity, the fact that you and I are talking about these charges right now, when it comes to regular people who are also in the throes of addiction but who don't have Matthew Perry's celebrity?
Diana, I've gotten this question a lot, and I have to answer it honestly. I don't think law enforcement would have dedicated the same resources if the victim was not Matthew Perry. I talked about Cody, who died 5 years ago. The political reality is, in the United States, every prosecutor is elected or appointed by someone who is. And high-profile cases like this do tend to garner more attention by both law enforcement and prosecutors. But hopefully, this will send a message to drug dealers as well as drug users to clean up their act and to get sober.
A chilling effect. Neama, thank you so much. We love an honest answer around here, even if it is a depressing one. But we definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much, Neama.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Diana.
Neama Rahmani is the president and co-founder of West Coast Trial Lawyers, as well as a former federal prosecutor. He joined us from Los Angeles.